Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I have with me today an amazing woman I had a fantastic conversation with just a couple weeks ago. She's a clinical social worker. Her name is Erin Matthews, and she's founder of Living in Empathy. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, you are an absolutely amazing person. When I spoke to you, I had learned so much in that conversation. I was like, okay,
Mm,
well, I can't wait for her to come back. I can't wait for
yeah, I was going to say, I'm excited to be back.
yes, yes. So you're familiar with Evanston.
Yes. I actually did AmeriCorps in Evanston after I graduated from U of I,
Mm,
Boys Hope, Girls Hope, actually. Yeah, so I lived on Hinman. hmm
okay, okay.
Yes, I did.
So
hmm
you're familiar with how our town operates, how things run here.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
I know that things have changed a little bit since then, but for the most part, yes, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yes, yes. Now, I know people are wanting you to go into um, living in empathy.
hmm
Now,
hmm
I've been called someone with empathy, an empath. Is that the right word?
An empath.
An empath. Uh, and sometimes I don't know whether to take it as a compliment or what are you trying to say? Break the word down for us,
Yes,
please.
yes. So the quick and easy version, it's really your ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Not to say, oh no, that must be terrible. To be like, wow, if that was me, how would I feel? Or what would I do? And it hits harder. Or
Mm,
it like punches you in the gut somewhere where you're like, whew, I can't even imagine.
mm,
Or okay, I have been in that situation. How can I then empower that person or that group, or lend my voice or uplift them?
mm.
So it's more personal.
Okay. Okay. So it's good to be an empath, an empath.
Yes, and where empaths kind of get a bad rap, or it's really that sensitive piece, or being sensitive or take it in, and really sometimes it can have a negative impact on your own mental health,
Mm,
because it's hard to then
mm,
get out of that empathy space.
mm,
So it's like really taking care of yourself is important.
Interesting. Interesting. Aaron.
I was like, do we need a self-care smackdown?
Interesting. Yes. Yes. Because yeah, the body, I feel like my body soaks up so much
Yes.
around me and I I feel like I take on. I know there's many people out there who can relate.
hmm
My brother and sister empaths out there.
hmm
You take in so much, and you're really trying to understand what's happening to groups of people. You
Right.
know, and put
Right.
yourself in their situation, or sometimes you are in their situation, and you
Exactly.
know what's going on in their head, and their heart, and their soul, and you just take it all in and you want to do so
hmm
much to help, you know.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, this morning, I don't know if you've heard like news in Evanston with the whole reparations and
I
all
have been following it. Yes.
it's been pretty heavy
hmm
duty here in town, and of
hmm
course we want everything to work out for everybody, but sometimes people just don't agree, and people approach racism and white supremacy very differently,
Correct.
but ultimately we
Right.
all want the same thing at the end of the day.
Right.
So
Right.
on Monday, when city council passed the vote to pass this housing program as reparations, and there's controversy in that,
hmm hmm
oh my gosh, it was like I I I I felt this. spirit of elders, ancestors, people here, people not born yet.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt it, and I almost
Mhm.
couldn't move like this morning. I was
Mhm.
drained, exhausted,
Mhm.
because I'm just been in
Mhm.
this fight because I want the best for everybody and
Right.
everybody involved. How
Right.
in the world living with empathy, please? How do we live with
Yes.
empathy, Erin?
Oh gosh. So I'm so glad you brought that up about the body, especially for, Black folks, people of color, taking that in day after day after day and not feeling safe already. And then these really heavy issues. And even when major legislation gets passed or something doesn't, it's just like the body will just knock you out, where it's like you're sleeping or you can't sleep, or physical symptoms. And it's like it takes a full-time job of taking care of yourself to
Mm-hmm.
stay in the work because
Mm-hmm.
it's so heavy. And then, like you were talking about, when different issues come up and like who holds power, who trumps other people's voices, and the exhaustion in that,
Mm-hmm.
it just, your body just soaks it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to move and to give yourself permission to be like, I can't, I'm tapping out for today. I might need to tap out for a week or two, to be like, and I try to do that myself, to be like, man, there are so many inspiring young people that maybe I just need to sit down, and maybe I could write a check and go about my business because I'm tired. And so it's like to know that we have options too, and that we have so many great people in it. It just doesn't have to be on us all
Mm.
the time. But it is heavy. So I would say, especially after all this, like what do you need? Do you need to sleep? Do you need to go get in nature? Do you need to tell someone like, please don't be blowing up my phone with this stuff? I need a mental checkout.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And it might be all of that and add a few more things. Right.
Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm.
Most definitely. Oh my gosh, you hit the nail on the head. Um, the man that I'm saying, I feel like I'm too old to say my boyfriend. The what do you say
Partner.
it now? My partner, my
Partner.
person.
Mhm. Right, right. Your ride or die, whatever.
Yes,
Right.
yes, my ride or die. I was, yeah, like a ball of just nerves and so much flowing through me, so much passion and anger and just so much going through me. And he literally had to like pull me out of the environment. And yes, we went out
Mhm.
into nature and
Mhm.
had wine, and it was just, it felt so good to just disconnect for a minute.
Right.
Hmm.
Right. And it's so important too to also heal in spaces of other people of color. You don't have to explain. It's either, with Zoom, we're so lucky you can do a yoga class or meditation or breath work with other people of color,
Hmm.
where you're journaling and the prompts are so relevant to you. So just to think about what you really truly need, that collective healing is really important too.
Mm, mm. So what do you call the people who? So, are they considered sympathizers as opposed to
Mm,
empathizers? What's the difference between the two?
mm,
Because I've been told I don't have much
mhm.
sympathy, but I have a ton of empathy.
Yeah, sympathy is like that's, oh, that sucks, or oh, that's heartbreaking. It's that
Mm,
there's a disconnect
mm,
where you might be lending some words, but that's where it ends.
mm,
The personalization just isn't there. So we see that a lot when we're looking at some allyship,
mm,
where we're like, where's your action? Because I see you talking and I see your sign in your yard. You're not putting your money behind Black businesses. You're not at the city council meeting backing up the Black leaders, but you want to say that you're an ally. But that's a noun. We need to see verbs, the action.
mm,
So that's where the sympathy and empathy piece comes too.
Mm,
in that, in those racialized spaces where the collective action needs to come from people of all races,
mm, mm,
not just people who look like us. It needs to come from a lot more white people.
mm. Interesting. Um, so this past Monday, speaking of the allies, so even our allies were even split on Monday.
Mm,
That was very interesting because you had um, you had you know beautiful white people who were like, I totally understand. That is not enough money to call reparations. This is not reparations.
mm,
This is just a housing program that you can get anywhere at any time. Why are we calling this
mm,
reparations? They deserve more. Let's spend some more time on this program and get
mhm.
the Black community in Evanston some real reparations like other groups have received, like the Jewish community has received for
Yes.
the Holocaust, what the Japanese have received.
Hmm.
Um, so their whole, I mean, they were like, the numbers don't make sense. And
Hmm.
um I totally felt like they were empathizing, because if
Hmm.
it was their family,
Right.
in that
Doesn't add up.
situation, like, how dare you lowball me
Hmm.
for my
That's
loss?
exactly what it is. Right.
How dare you?
Right.
And so
Right.
that was really powerful, and it was beautiful. And many of them don't feel comfortable speaking on reparations, which I totally understand. They don't want to speak
Hmm.
publicly, speak out about it, because they totally feel like it's not their place. But they were definitely sharing, like, it's wrong on so many levels. You all should fight for real reparations. Just don't take anything right now until you
Right.
can get your real reparations. Because
Right.
they felt it was an insult to us. To
Yes. It's the check the box. Like,
Yeah.
okay, can we check this box and this can be done and we can move on?
Right.
And that's what a lot of,
Mm.
D&I initiatives turn into. It's like, can we just do this to get out of hot water so these people go away?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you had the allies who were like, just take what you can get, be happy that it's a start. It's a great start. A bank loan as your form of reparations is a great start.
And you're like, for who? It's
Exactly.
like, do you know the history of this? I
Hmm.
mean, that just goes back to '08.
Hmm.
Those weren't safe loans. And
Hmm.
that's a whole different conversation
Hmm.
of who's giving the loan and what terms. Is
Hmm.
it 0%? Or is there a balloon payment somewhere in there? Or something that's like it's unfortunately the trust is not there.
Yeah, and one white woman on the city council, not on the city council, but she spoke during public comment. She said, "You should just take what you can get now, because you might end up with nothing."
Are
And
you
I
like,
was like, "Well, damn, interesting."
that's what we've been dealing with. So what's what what else is there to lose? And I think that's where people are at. Like, okay, well, we got nothing, so we got a lot to gain. So we'll just keep going.
We'll keep going like we always have for years.
Mhm.
Um, and then there was the argument, well, because you all are speaking out, you're blocking the 15 out of 12,000 plus from receiving the housing program, their reparations. And that's totally not what the opposers were trying to do. They're like, no, pass a housing program. People want housing assistance,
Yeah.
definitely pass that.
Mhm.
Just don't call it reparations, because when it's time for some real
Mhm.
reparations, the bar has been set so low, we're not going to get it.
Right. Right.
Mm.
You're exactly right. And that's the difference between, does this just look like a housing program in many other communities? If it does, then just be honest. That's the piece that like gets all of us, is the gaslighting and the dishonesty piece of like, don't try to package this up as something that we're sitting here saying, no, we know what this is. Don't try to put a bow on it.
Mhm.
It's not what you're saying.
Mhm.
So, and that's where that's where the frustration comes.
Mm, mm. So, Erin, how do we deal with that frustration? It's like,
Whew,
oh
right?
my gosh, like I hate to see that the community is divided on this topic. So, I give all love and respect to Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons for opening the door to
Hmm.
reparations.
It's a
But
big door. You're right.
she definitely
Mhm.
opened the door. She kicked it open. And now that it's become a real conversation, uh, it's kind of torn the community because there are those who are like, let me just take what we can get, and then those who are like,
Mhm.
no, we need, now that the door is open, let's
Yeah,
get our reparations like other groups have gotten their reparations. And
exactly.
um, so how do we even heal from that? Because we all ultimately want the same thing. We just
Mhm.
approach white supremacy very differently. What do
Exactly.
we deal? How do we come back together? How do we, or is that just something that will never come together because some people just deal white supremacy differently. They approach it differently, they
Right.
respond differently.
Right. And it's really like who has the power that's causing the divide, I guess. So is it the group that's saying, no, 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 you're just going to have to do this program and that's good enough? Is that who really holds the power? So do those people realize the history, which I think we don't, which I'm so glad the Black Caucus has a new bill that got passed to be like, oh no, there's a lot of history here of economic justice and it's not new.
Mm,
So for, the people of color in the community, this is ongoing. But to the white people, this might seem new, but it's not. It's new because it's by design. So I tell a lot of white people that too. It is by design that our textbooks are the way they are.
mm,
I do that in my group week 2. I put up the CEO and everybody at Pearson because it's worldwide textbook company. Do you see anyone non-white? It's like, do they have any skin in the game? And then the rest of us, they're setting the precedent. So the white people who are against it really need to, when we say, quote, do the work, which is really read and listen to what has been happening to people. And good enough
mm,
is still doing. So if you don't want to do harm, you have to listen to the people it's going to impact instead of being like, no, 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 we got this. It's like, are you listening?
mm,
And that is what I tell so many white people. Just show up and listen. Don't put yourself in it unless you're understanding the harm.
mm,
And then we can start to have a conversation. But that has to happen. I mean, because I'm a trained therapist, when I hold these groups, it truly is like group therapy.
mm,
People are so vulnerable. That's why I keep it small, and try to be as safe as possible and hold that space for people to call themselves out and say like, I didn't know, or what am I supposed to do, and push through some of that anxiety to get to a better place, to be able to listen, because people are so amped and hype.
mhm,
We know you, when emotions get so high, like you just can't hear. So
mm,
to do some of that personal work with anxiety and feeling and a lot of well white people are just frozen. They're just like, I don't know what to say, and that people are going to get mad at me, and so it's pushing through some of that to be on the side of no, 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 we need to do what's right, not what's easy, and that will go away.
mm,
So it's so difficult and it's so frustrating for you know the Black members of the Evanston community to have to continue to like say, you're not listening to us.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
then people are just get worn out. And that's how things just don't happen.
mm, mm. Um, well, as far as the Black community, well, one, it's interesting you said that because we're in an election right now. I don't know if you know, Evanston is we have our aldermanic election right now and city clerk election right now, and it's been interesting in the forums because I think like candidate Jonathan Newsma, um, he had brought up something very interesting when we talked about reparations in the forums, and he said, "You know what? I'm here to listen. I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
listen. It is not my place." You know, even though he'll be possibly
Mm-hmm.
becoming a new alderman, um,
Yeah.
and he'll have to make decisions on this reparations plan. Um, but he said, right now, I just need to listen, and I thought that that was so powerful of him to
Mm-hmm.
say that.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
It's like decentering himself
Hmm.
in what because he knows he's going to bring some unconscious bias.
Hmm.
That's what I hear when people say, I just need to listen because I know I might be bringing something that's going to cloud my vision. So I just need to sit here and sit in it,
Hmm.
center my experience, listen to these people's experience. So if you need a school and there's a school is a center of a community in a neighborhood,
Hmm.
and that is put out there, I'm hoping that he's listening
Hmm.
to all the reasons that's so important.
Hmm.
And if that was taken away and that's done harm, how are people listening to the harm that was done?
Hmm.
Intentional or unintentional, fine, but there was harm done. So I think that's where correcting harm somehow gets tabled.
Hmm. Hmm. And then another, an incumbent, um, Tom Suffredin, he was in, oh my gosh, talk about empathizing for this person. He was in such an uncomfortable position, and I'm just wondering, like, what would be your advice to him, or would have been your advice to him? Maybe still
Mm-hmm.
be your advice to him, because I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
he's still having to process what he went through. But he's a white male. Um, he runs a predominantly, he's a leader, alderman of a predominantly white ward here in Evanston, the
Mm-hmm.
sixth ward.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, back when reparations was first introduced to Evanston, he voted no because there was no plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, what are we voting on? There's no plan. So when there's a plan, then let's vote, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ultimately, he was right because there was no plan. There still isn't a
Oh.
plan. And that was over a year ago. They said they've been planning for 2 years, but for 2 years, you came up with bank loans. So pretty much is still no
Mm-hmm.
plan in place.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
so now he had to vote again this past Monday, and his opponent kind of threatened him if he didn't vote yes. You know, uh, I felt for him because he was empathizing with the Black community in that um, right now, as this plan looks, the reparations is incomplete, and it's only going to serve 15 out of 12,000. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's no plan for how the rest of the Black community is going to be repaired. He was
Mm-hmm.
thinking like that, and that's why he didn't want to support it still, because it
Right.
was going to cause more issues later within the Black
Yeah.
community. So he was forced to vote yes because of the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but his explanation in voting yes was a complete no, I'm not in agreement with how this is going
Right.
down, because he
Right.
totally understood what was happening. Um, and I was like, wow, wow, you know, but he was forced by, you know, a white person who thought she was sympathizing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right. Right.
What would you advise if they were in a group
Well,
together?
and that happens a lot
Mm.
where two white people talking about an
Okay,
issue.
I can't hear you, Erin.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Better? Okay. Um, two white people grappling over an issue that doesn't really affect them. So I would have asked him, since he's been around for 2 years while this has all been happening, how he's used his privilege to push for it. and why bank loans is the only thing that's come up. So the white people need to use their privilege to get things done and not just say like, I don't know, why the heck taken 2 years? That's what lots of racialized issues always do. We look up and we're like, no progress. Oh, another year, no progress. So how does he have any skin in the game? And I guess now he's being called out because nothing's really been done that he can vote on. And I know it's a big system in politics, of course, but someone's got to be held accountable for the turtle pace.
Hmm. Well, to his defense, the Reparations Committee was all, you know, Black people in the community, except for one alderman, Ann Rainey. She was the only white person on the committee. Um, so he wasn't really invited or allowed to be really a part of that. He wasn't expected to be in the process. So, he was like, you know what, I'm here to listen.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when it's time to vote, but I mean, when he first voted no, he had suggested there needs to be a plan in place because this is going to be a
Mhm.
disaster.
Mhm.
Um, and in all that time, still no plan was put together. So he was back at
Mhm.
the same place. Now it was real pressure on him. What are you going to vote?
Right.
If you vote no again, then your opponent is going to call you a racist. It
Mhm.
was it was such an intense.
Mm. So lose lose.
Yeah, it was very
Mhm.
intense. So I'm like, what would you
Mhm.
do as the expert in the room, living in
Yeah.
empathy? How would you have?
I mean, if he's there to listen and truly back up
Mm,
what the Black folks who have been leading the effort, then he needs to say that. To
mm,
say like, I defer to them. They're the experts in the room. I'm trying to uphold the mission that they're on.
mhm,
And really just, if that's the truth, speak it.
mhm,
And trying to, encourage more white people to say, I'm trying to sit down and stand up whenever I'm led rather than me leading, because I'm not supposed to be leading this.
mhm,
It should be the Black members of this community. And even though I'm in an elected position, I'm still deferring to them.
mhm. Well, he did vote yes, but he
Hmm.
is very concerned about how
Hmm.
reparations is going to play out and be fair to everyone.
Hmm.
Then we
Hmm.
had a Black alderman, um, Alderman Fleming. She was in a really tough spot because she was the only no vote at the end of the night because she said, there's no plan.
Right.
This is not reparations, and I can't do this to my people. I
Hmm.
can't allow the bar to be set so low that they're paying back on their own reparations. You know,
Exactly.
um, she laid it out, and again, the empathizer in me, she was under so much pressure and abuse from other
Hmm.
city officials.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I mean, she took it hard for about 2 weeks, and what would be your advice to her, or in that position, and what would be your advice to her now, living in empathy?
Hmm. Hmm. And I do a lot of decolonization work. And that sounds like it's the mindset she's coming from. To be
Mm,
like, oh no, I've been set up before. I'm not doing this again.
mm,
To be like, she knows what the model ends up being, and it does not help the Black community.
mm,
And so to really know that she's going to be on the right side of history, and she's representing the ancestors who had land stolen and burned down, and just staying in that position where it's like, man, you're pulling just from some deep places
mm,
of, I tell even my clients, I tell other people, like, have pictures up of people who came before you have things like ready that you're looking at every day, because it's truly that hard to keep going.
Mm.
So, and to really, like, for her, I mean, she's going to end up, I don't want her to end up having health issues. And that's what a lot of people end up with, because the pressure, and like, don't get us started on the medical conditions that have been passed down through the generations.
Mm.
So to really think about what she needs to rest,
Mm.
and rest as resistance too. It's so hard in her elected position to ever rest,
Mm.
but we don't want a health condition to make her rest.
Mm-hmm.
So to think about, she knows how predatory lending works.
Mm.
She knows that if the masses aren't getting something, then it's not worth it.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Yes. Yes. God, I wish you were there. You could have just counseled everybody before they went into, before they went into session on the Zoom. Just, gave everybody, some empathy, because I think everyone
Mhm.
was needing some. Well, definitely Sufford and Fleming were definitely in need of
Right,
some
right,
empathy that night.
right,
Uh,
right, right.
yeah, yeah, it was a rough night. It was a rough night. So how
Mhm.
does the Black community come? I've been getting calls. Everyone's so divided. Um, because the word was it's only a few people, so don't pay any attention to them. Well, no, it ended up being just as they had said. No, there's a large group of people who have a problem with this
Mhm.
plan here. um,
Mhm.
so how do we come back together, and how is it that some of us approach white supremacy so differently?
Mhm.
Do you remember the TV
Mhm.
show The Underground? They took it off air like after the second season because it showed how um, they showed an aspect of slavery that they don't teach. They showed the ones that
Mhm.
fought back, that
Mhm.
fought back.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so in that, I love that TV series because it really showed the difference in how we each approach
Yes.
white supremacy. So you had
Yes.
the ones who were just give me whatever, give me the crumbs, and I'm happy, boss. Yes, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
you had the ones who were like, this is some bull, like I don't
Yeah.
live like this. I didn't come,
Right. Right.
no, I'll die leaving, getting up out of here, fighting to get up out of here for a better life. Um, so that's almost like in the blood, depending
Of
on
course.
depending on who your ancestors were. So, and
Yes.
how do we come together for something so historical as reparations, that's so
Mhm.
powerful and meaningful to us, like it was to the Jewish community with the Holocaust, like it was to the
Mhm.
Japanese? This is
Mhm.
now our time, thanks to Alderman Ruth Simmons. This is our time now. So
Right.
now we're divided. What do we
Yes.
do to come together because we approach it so differently? Your ancestors
Right.
approached it differently than my ancestors did.
Oh gosh. I mean, that's $1 million question of, because we're all, and I'm probably more like you too. I swing more radical to be like, we got to go full out decolonization, because the status quo doesn't serve any of us.
Mm,
And then, but then other people are just, there's a lot of fear, as there should be,
mm,
because there are real repercussions for people's economics
mm,
when when things don't move.
mm,
So to really think, like, I know I always say a lot of people can get on the same page when it's about children,
mm,
and it's about breaking cycles and you know building generational wealth, and that, unfortunately, that includes land.
mhm,
Now we don't live in a world like indigenous folks did, where land belongs to no one. We own, that's the white supremacy value, like, you own things and it's mine and it's ours. And unfortunately, that's what we're stuck with. So to think about what is better for the greater good, is it, and if we can think of a 5-year-old going into kindergarten, what's their life going to be like? What do we want their life to look like in 12th grade?
Mhm.
And what's that going to take? Is that going to be still living in an apartment? Or do we want that family to have a home?
Mhm.
And what does that mean? So I think people can sometimes get on board with that.
Mhm.
But you're right. It's across so many groups,
Mhm.
Black, brown, all of us,
Mhm.
where it's hard to come together. But what do we want to change?
Mhm.
It's hard to
Mhm.
think about, because it's just when people are scared, they it's we go back to the status quo.
Mhm.
We got to get past that fear.
Well, the the empathizer in me, I don't like to see or want to see the Black community divided. I don't want to see Evanston divided, period. As a whole,
Exactly.
it
Right.
would be euphoria, it would be utopia for all of us to be on one page, but that's not life. That's not
Right.
reality.
Right.
Um, but ultimately, I think most of us want the same thing. We just have a different
Hmm.
approach to it.
Hmm.
Um, some are willing to take more of a risk, and others are like, no, let's play it safe and just go with what we got. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I hate that that there is a divide, and I'm really hoping that we heal from it. Um, I think a lot is going to be depending on what this phase 2 is of reparations,
Hmm.
which in 2 years they have not come up with a phase 2. So I think
Right.
that led to a lot of mistrust with a
Hmm.
lot of the Black community because there isn't a
Exactly.
phase 2 laid out in those 2 years of planning it. Um, so I guess that'll be the determining factor if everyone starts feeling like they're going to get repair too, not just
Right.
15 people, but theirs is coming too.
Exactly. And that's where it just goes back to the trust piece.
Mm,
And if we know there was a system in this country that worked, why
mm,
not just copy it? There's your phase 2. It's already been done and it worked.
mm,
That's what I think makes people crazy too. When it's like we talk about different groups who've
mm,
done it, but when it comes to the Black community, it just can't get done. And
mm,
I think that's where people just don't trust the process.
mm, mm.
It's like,
That's
why is that? What's the holdup?
mm, mm,
So it just replicates itself
over
over
and
and over. And
over.
I think people just, so then the trust goes completely out the window.
Mm, mm. I think you really hit it right there is a mistrust because we're so used to being disappointed and
Hmm.
getting our hopes up and having belief. Um, and then just a hint of it after 2 years, y'all ain't came up with a phase 2 for reparations. Like, okay, yeah,
Because
this
it's like, what are we really talking about then?
right, right.
And then people are just check out.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So that trust has to be regained for us to all be united. The trust
Right.
to be regained. Oh, girl, how do we get
Deep.
how?
Oh God, right? I mean, it's, as we know, it's 400 years in the making. So
Mhm.
it is it in people with really good intentions, but it's like, can you just use a model that works and copy it?
Mm,
I mean, people do in business all the time. Why can't we do it in government?
mm.
And
Okay, and that
yeah,
brings me to another point. I know I got to let you go. We got 1 minute.
yeah.
That brings me to another thing. So you have the other groups that receive their reparations, and they receive cash payment. Why is it that when we want cash payment, it's an absolute no?
Mhm.
You will never receive cash payments. No, absolutely not. Um, what's up with that?
Yeah, it's the ingrained all the way back. I mean, look at Native Americans and Black folks.
Mm,
Just can't get the the trust. And it's like the anti-Blackness, the anti-Indigenous is so ingrained in this country
mm,
that it's just when it comes to Black folks, it just is a no. The status quo is no.
no.
And it takes so much to overcome that
Mm,
no.
mm,
And if the system is set up by design for whatever, we take some steps forward and it just someone, that's why there's no trust, someone comes out and pulls the rug out from under.
mm.
And it's like I always joke, but it's not funny, of like when people like pull, the bootstraps comment, it's like what happens when you done burnt the boots? There are no, they got burned up. And I think that's where people are just just get upset. And we see that, the Black community, like we have so many mental health issues
Mm,
because it's just like two steps forward and then someone comes and like pushes you back and it's exhausting. Or
mm,
it's like, no, 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 we're gonna do this. No, it's gonna get done. And it's like, okay, okay, we got this. It's gonna come. It does. And then people are like, oh, forget it then.
mm,
And
mm,
what does that do to your heart and your mind and your body?
mm,
It's a lot to hold every day.
mm,
So my thing, I hope that they find something that works and push it through.
mm,
Why do, why were internment camps taken seriously? That major harm was done and repair needs to come.
mhm,
It's never too late. So
mm.
it can be done if people want it done.
Yeah,
We know this.
I believe that. I truly, truly believe that. I truly believe that. And again, it goes back to the argument. There are those who approached it like, we can get it done. We can get those cash payments. Don't accept this, because then when we're not going to get the cash
Mm,
payments. And then there are those
right.
who are like, no, we need to accept this and maybe we'll get the cash payments. So
We can't trust that
mm,
because we know before it'll be like, oh no, no, but that was, we got that passed. Like, no, we're gonna get to that in 2025. I mean, I hear that all the time about anti-racism, like, oh, we're not focusing on that this year. We're gonna do LGBT. And
mm,
I was like, and it's just like, wow, okay.
mm,
So this isn't new. But I'm hopeful that some momentum can happen.
mm, mm. Well, thank you so much, Erin. Please let everyone know how they can get in touch with you. I just think that you're just awesome and you're just so clear cut to the point. This is what it is,
Yes.
and this is what you need to do.
And it's just like, and people, I just think people just want to cut to the chase. Like, let's just talk about it instead of dancing around the issue. My website is www.livinginempathy.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Living in Empathy. And I have a free newsletter that goes out every Monday. It's scroll down at the bottom of my website and I send out podcasts, quotes, things to really ponder over. It's mostly, I have some people of color, but it's really to engage more white people in anti-racism action. And I will tell everyone who's listening, support your Black-owned businesses in Evanston, especially as the vaccines are rolling out. Like, get out this summer and eat some ice cream and desserts and books and candles and all the things, and just make sure you're getting out to the white people who are listening. Get out of your comfort zone and go mix and take your children with you. That's where a lot of people are like, well, how do I just go and get a Black friend? I'm like, do things you normally would do. I hear that all the time. Do things you normally, what do you enjoy doing? Go learn from a Black person. Put your money, where your values are. Start with that. That's why I always joke, like, start with ice cream. go to a Black owned ice cream and just be a normal person. Go get a coffee at a Black owned coffee shop and take your children with you and just be people.
Mm, mm,
Jump in your car, wear a mask. Yeah.
mm, mm. Tell them one more time where they can contact you if they need
Yes.
more answers,
It's,
they have questions.
yeah, for sure. Livinginempathy.com or IG, Instagram at Living in Empathy.
Mm, mm. Well, we might need you to come back to bring some healing to the Black community, because again, I
Mhm.
want us to all be one and unified on
Mhm.
this, and it really does bother me that there is a divide on that, and yeah, I hope that that comes to an end soon.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
we'll have to have you back.
For sure. Just remember, colonize. We are set up to be colonized, to
Mm,
really think about how we've ingrained and internalized white supremacy and how we then say, no, this isn't working for me and my family. So we can do something. We can do better for the future and, heal for our ancestors too. And my last thing I will say is that rest is resistance. I struggle with this myself all the time, but when can we literally lay or take a nap or sit down when we feel overwhelmed?
mm,
And
mm,
it is okay for us to do. We
mm.
are not mules, which people tell me all the time. Erin, you are not a mule. Like you need to check yourself. So I'm just making sure that I give other people permission because it always helps me when other, folks of color, Black women especially, would be like, you need to sit down. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I'm listening. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Erin. Again, this
Thank
is Erin
you.
Matthews, Living in Empathy. I love it. I love you've given me a much deeper understanding of empathy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right, you all, this is Malika, Evanston Live TV. Be sure to stay tuned. We have more amazing people doing amazing things right here in Evanston. All right, you guys have a great night. And I'm praying that we heal and come together after all that we have been through with this election and reparations and COVID and vaccines. And oh my
Mm.
gosh, I do see light at the end of the tunnel, though. I'm excited for what's to come for everybody. So you all have a great night.